You're listening to The Conversation. When Roberto Baggio steps up to the penalty spot at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California, it's all or nothing. He must score, or Italy lose the World Cup.
Roberto Baggio, the saviour of Italy throughout this tournament. He's missed it! Brazil in the World Cup!
More than 94,000 people are there to watch Brazilian ecstasy and Italian heartbreak that day in July 1994, and millions more watch on television across the world. To this day, no other FIFA World Cup has been as well attended as the 1994 tournament. Tickets were cheap, and despite the relatively low profile of the game in the US, people went along to see what it was all about. Now, 32 years later, as the World Cup returns to North America with games across Mexico, Canada and the US, soccer has grown a much larger and more dedicated fan base in America. So what's changed? And does this popularity have staying power? I'm Gemma Ware from The Conversation, a news and analysis platform partnering journalists with academics. Welcome to The Conversation Weekly, where experts explain how we ended up here. In this episode, how the US finally fell in love with soccer. John Sloop, you're a professor of communication studies at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, and a historian of soccer and its fans in the United States. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
John, the last time the US hosted the FIFA World Cup was in 1994. Where were you back then? What was it like?
I was actually living in Des Moines, Iowa, so I was close to some of them. But, I was talking to my partner the other night. She was living in Dallas at the time, and even though games sold out, she remembers being able to walk up the day of to buy tickets. It was a bizarre time, and we did an incredible job of bringing crowds out. But for the most part, it was still a curiosity. It was great hosting the World Cup. But in terms of soccer knowledge in the nation, pretty low. Historically, of course, very important for us in America because one of the stipulations of getting the World Cup was that the U.S. Soccer Federation make another attempt to get a professional soccer league going here. If you look at the U.S. national team for 94, the vast majority of them weren't even with clubs. They were playing for the U.S. Soccer Federation. So That's where we were at the time. It's weird to look back and see that, right? Yeah.
And what about this 2026 World Cup? How different as a moment would you say this tournament is compared to 1994? The look, the feel, the love of the game in the US?
That's a complicated question. I wish I could say, wow, it's just grown so much. There's so much knowledge. There's so much excitement. But it's a strange moment we're living in. And we all know that. Yes, there's way more soccer knowledge. Our women's team has made us aware of international football in so many ways. And so there's that excitement. And we've got young American players who are now playing in places and getting well known. On the other hand, we're living in a weird political moment of, I was going to say isolationism, that sort of changed, but a hostility, some U.S. hostility towards other parts of the world, hostility towards immigration, immigrants, and then associating that with football, et cetera, still happens on some level. So it's excitement, but it's a very odd moment that way.
Are you going to go?
I'm more excited now than I was in 94. My fanship has grown. My knowledge of international soccer has grown. I've got to tell you, the prices for a while there were scaring me. They're starting to drop in several places, so I might go. I may be happy watching it on a television set, however. We'll have to see. I haven't yet decided.
Okay, let's rewind a few decades. What kind of following did soccer have in the US before 1994?
When it first comes here from England, we were playing it before almost every other country, and it had a history. That history falls apart for reasons which were important to talk about pre-94. American exceptionalism, the idea that we invent our own games, the idea that we play our own games, etc., muscular Christianity, makes soccer into something that is seen for a long period as foreign, as alien, as something of immigrants, and as a soft sport, right? And it seems to disappear off the map, although we have this long history with it. In the late 60s or mid 60s when investors are looking for a sport to buy into, right? Once again, the idea comes up, let's create a professional soccer league, the North American Soccer League.
Games of the North American Soccer League are part of TSN's exciting soccer coverage. We'll follow the Blizzard as they take on Minnesota, New York, and Tampa Bay.
And they're playing in major cities, but they're not playing in football fields yet. They're playing on off-sites, et cetera. And the sport's barely getting any viewership. The New York Cosmos, which is one of the most famous teams from that era, they're the ones that make the great pitch. We're going to make this into something visible. They get Pele to come out of retirement.
The sports fan, the president, and his guest, Pele, newly signed by the New York Cosmos and in town to play in a greatly heralded match with the Washington Diplomats.
Signs a big contract, $4 to $7 million. He comes, and then we just start signing stars from all over the globe coming here to play. The league takes off in a very flashy way, starts getting very large viewership, not necessarily on TV, but they were selling out stadiums of 60-something thousand when Pele shows up. Some of those records held until the Messi effect now. But anyway, the league gets us in sort of trouble worldwide. We create this league, and the league has rules that don't exist elsewhere.
Like what?
So, for example, penalty kicks, right? Instead of having the person at a spot take the kick, the person who was taking the penalty kick was way out near the midfield.
And like in field hockey.
Yes, he had 5 seconds to shoot the ball. And the goalkeeper came running out of the box at him, right? So it was more of a face-off, one-on-one. But there were also lots of fireworks. There were lots of promotions. One car dealership sponsors the team, so they're always bringing cars onto the field. There's just a lot going on that for your typical English fan at the time looked gaudy, seemed crazy. Some of the players that came over were like, what the hell have I gotten myself into? There's fireworks going off. There's a guy with a chainsaw. A lot of that going on, right? And it's big. It's flashy. There's lots of money. And this is when, historically, this is an important point, because we had to call it soccer. We had no choice. We had football. We couldn't call it anything else.
Yeah.
We take soccer, of course, from the English. They're the ones who invented the term. Sort for association football. It's like rugger for rugby. This is soccer. English newspapers at the time, if you do a study before 1970, they used soccer and football almost interchangeably when talking about the sport. Once the North American Soccer League takes off, man, that term gets banished and it gets looked down upon when we use it, right? Because we start looking like rubes who are turning it into something it wasn't. At any rate, the North American Soccer League does this. It grows. It gets popular. But it's a flash in the pan. When you have a model that allows big market teams to put $4 million on a player, it was going to crash. The teams went bankrupt. The league just starts falling apart, right? As the players are leaving and retiring, they can't replace them, et cetera. And it completely collapses. That collapse is somewhat heartbreaking to soccer fans, for real international soccer fans. Is this ever going to work in the United States? What kind of model would make this work?
And then one of the conditions of awarding the US the 1994 World Cup was that it would set up another professional soccer league for men to help boost the game in the States. How did that go?
So, that doesn't really get started until after the World Cup occurred, but they had to promise to get it started. When they do, MLS starts out with 10 teams.
This is 1996, a dramatically different, totally different era in American soccer. And starting tonight, the MLS is going to prove just how dramatic a difference it's going to be.
Mostly NFL team owners who were trying to fill their stadium up, but they agreed to help out with this. They did some smart things that you would do in this case. You take the U.S. soccer team who played in the World Cup, some of the people who had become stars, Eric Winalda, Alexi Lalas, of course. You distribute them, put one of those in each city. The league is structured so that it has one ownership. Players literally are playing for MLS. They have a contract with a team, but their real contract is with the league. So the league has control over all types of things here. A salary cap that keeps anybody from hiring a Pele, et cetera. So it's a very small league. Doesn't get a lot of attention. Very little, if any, TV viewers. That slow growth model turns out to be a smart thing, right? MLS is getting a lot of attention now.
Yeah, so it's attracted some big names since it first started. David Beckham, famously, Thierry Henry, now Lionel Messi, plays for Inter Miami.
Lionel Andres Messi!
the king of soccer has arrived in America.
Has that attracted new fans in the same way that the NASL did in the 70s?
It does bring lots of eyes, and there's no doubt about it when those players travel. Messi more than Beckham, just because we're in a different era. They travel, more people show up. They have to move games outside of soccer-specific stadiums to house all the fans who want to see it. The first time Messi played here in Nashville, I had so many people bothering me trying to get tickets, and I have no access to extra tickets. People who don't care about soccer, they have to be there. They have a fear of missing out. It's extraordinary what it does. It brings lots of eyes to soccer. And I think ultimately that's good for the league, or they wouldn't be doing it, right? It's going to bring in more money in certain ways, et cetera. Although it does cost a lot to bring in players like this. And the other cost is, and something I think MLS has moved away from, but continue to face when they're bringing in players, is you have the tendency to look like a retirement league or a sunset league. Oh, they bring in these older players at the end of their career. That's the only time they would do this. And I think that's a bit unfair. Some of the superstars, that's the case. Although Messi could have continued playing anywhere in the world he wanted to play when he came here, right? But MLS is doing a really good job of developing players now and building academies, building an infrastructure that North American Soccer League never had.
And what about this dynamic about people having like a major league and a minor league team? So they might have a minor league MLS team, but then they'll have a major league team somewhere else in the world.
The number of people that watch leagues outside the United States is cumulatively way higher than people who watch MLS, if we add it all up together, including Liga MX, which is a very popular league, of course, here, the Mexican league. But the growth that's happening for all the other leagues, the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, is phenomenal. But many people came to soccer through watching European leagues. Some of these fans didn't have an MLS team when they first started watching because it didn't exist. Chelsea that's my team. That's where my heart really is. I'm a season ticket holder here, but in effect, Chelsea's where my emotions lie, right? And there's a lot of people like that. And I think this leads to a very interesting phenomenon when it comes to the World Cup. I don't have statistics for this. Anecdotally, I can tell you, I have multiple friends, people I know, whose alignment when it comes to World Cup play is with another nation. So they're treating, in fact, other nations as franchises, right? I've got friends who are like, I don't like the U.S. team. I'm for the French. And this comes a lot because of who we view, who our favorite players have been in the past, who we're watching. And that's why the World Cup's so much fun to watch, of course, is because you're seeing these players that you know from other places come into play. There's an author, Laurent Dubois, who talks about how World Cup play is interesting because that's a time when people express nationalism that they might not in any other case. So there I am wearing an American flag headband and a suit, and I'm screaming USA. And I would never do that in any other circumstance, right? But there, I'm nationalistic. And so it's interesting to me that there's so many other fans who distance themselves and all of a sudden attach to another country, right? And I think that has to do with the history, but I think it also has to do with the fact that America's sports are mostly franchise-based. Unlike, say, football in England, which is community-based, right? Not based like a franchise to move around.
We can't not mention the US women's team, which is obviously hugely successful, and it has been for decades. They won the Women's World Cup in 2015, 2019, 4 Olympic gold medals so far this century.
The USA, 5 years on from their last major trophy, now a fabulous 5 times Olympic women's champion.
And they've got their own massive stars like Megan Rapinoe. How's that fed through into the broader popularity of the game?
That attention brings a lot of attention to the sport and creates fans. There's no doubt about that. The women's team has done a world of good for soccer in the United States. I know a lot of people who tell me I don't watch anything but the U.S. women's team. Part of that is because they were so good for so long. It's so much easier to watch a winner than watch a team that bails out all the time. And the Women's Soccer League here, the NWSL, while it's not getting a lot of television attention yet, the attendance at most of these franchises is becoming larger and larger. And all of this together, I think, helps grow the sport as well. And it's too easy in talking about soccer or football in the United States to separate men's and women's out. But in effect, these are all working together to grow the sport.
Coming up, who is watching soccer in America and why that matters?
Hello, So curious kids, have you ever wondered how high a volcano can throw lava in the air? Or
why is it that when you're in a bath your fingers go wrinkly?
Or even,
will scientists be able to make a new element?
Well, you're in the right place. I'm Eloise and welcome back to Season 2 of The Conversation's Curious Kids, the podcast where an expert answers some of your most head-scratching questions. Listen to The Conversation's Curious Kids wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's step back. Has all this worked? Has all this kind of investment in the game? And objectively, how much more popular can we say that soccer is as a sport now in the US than it was back in 1994?
On the one hand, it's vastly more popular in the sense that so many more people have played. You expect to see soccer played on fields in almost any town. A city like Nashville, which could hardly support a team a while back, now has a 30,000-seat soccer-specific stadium. I was there last night to watch a game. It was almost sold out, playing Los Angeles. Of course, it's way more popular that way. On the other hand, there are people who are not even aware that we have a soccer league in the United States. There's no one that's not aware that we have NFL or NBA. I was talking to someone, a Lyft driver, a month ago, going out to the airport here, and I was talking about being a fan of the Nashville team. He was like, there's a Nashville team? So in some people's minds, it's still marginal. And I don't want to make this just about my local team, but I'm bringing this up because I think this type of anecdotal evidence tells you something about how certain types of people in America still look at it. When this soccer stadium was built here, it was built in an area of town that was controversial about whether they should build it there or not. And if you look online at different comments about it, the critique is still that this is a foreign sport it's just Mexican fans, etc. And that's not at all what's happening with soccer in Nashville. But you have people who don't like it, who are still pushing it aside in the ways of nationalistic, ethnic forms that are historical, even though they're no longer at all. There's no evidence for that whatsoever. So growing, yes. Is it facing an uphill battle still? Yes, absolutely.
Let's talk about that demographic point that you just raised, because soccer obviously does have a big following among immigrant and diaspora communities in the US. Obviously the Mexican, other Latin Americans, but also African diaspora. But what you're saying is that's led to some criticism of it as a foreign sport by some.
That is shifting. I do want to add something here that I think is important. Soccer was 1940s, 1950s. I say this with great admiration, man. Soccer sustained itself in the United States on the backs of immigrant communities, right? If you look at who won the U.S. Open Cup during all those years, the team names, there are names like the Germans, the Ukrainians winning these leagues. They kept it alive. Hungarian immigrants, people coming from Budapest after the revolution, etc. Kurdistan FC. Those teams were largely made up of immigrants. On the other hand, if you have people who are frightened of immigration, that doesn't help with that segment of the population when they're looking at it, right? So it is, in fact, true that in the United States, there were periods of time where it was largely a sport sustained by immigrants. Now, that also led to a lot of fan base that direction. Now, that begins to change in multiple ways. As going back to the North American Soccer League, one of the things that did was establish soccer as a sport that could be played by a lot of people. So the youth start playing. So you start having suburban teams. You have these gigantic leagues all over growing at that time. So you have more people playing. So the fan base gets more differentiated, right? Very diverse, men and women. That starts happening, and still some of the stereotype exists about what fans are.
Television is such a key driver of any fanship of any sport, because if people can watch a game, then they're more likely to become a fan or try it out themselves. Have there been some big breakthroughs in the US in terms of the ways soccer has been on TV, being accessible?
Oh, yeah, 100%. So most of us will tell the story about trying to watch our European teams, 15 years ago. It was difficult. When NBC signs on to start broadcasting Premier League games, every single game was on for free, right? Every game.
It's an alien concept to me living in the UK.
Not just alien to you, but it was wild. The first day they started broadcasting, I, for example, turned on my TV and then I had 3 different computers in my house streaming other games just because I could and I wanted to. I thought it would be great fun. I wrote a friend of mine in England and I said, oh my God, I'm getting to watch way more Premier League than you are. Isn't this funny? And he didn't find it funny at all. But it was everywhere. Now, this doesn't just allow more fans, but it also allows way more group viewing at soccer bars, at sports bars, etc. So, for example, in my town, but in all types of other towns, you have bars specifically that do this. We're going to be open for every Premier League game, every weekend. What this does is brings in people to watch. It brings in new fans, and then it makes us congregate. We're there watching with each other. While we might have our specific bars or other bars, you're going to run into other fans there. That builds group excitement. So right now, so many of the other channels are picking up. Now we can see Serie A games. We can see almost all the Bundesliga games. It's almost all available.
What about MLS?
Yeah, well, MLS is actually more difficult than a lot of them. That's on Apple. At first, the only people who could watch for free were season ticket holders for MLS teams. Now it's opened up to other viewers because with Messi coming in, et cetera, you've got to get eyes on those games. But yeah, you can watch almost anything you want to watch, anywhere you want to watch it.
So what stands out to you about this 2026 World Cup and the way people in the US are talking, following, supporting it? What are you noticing now about this World Cup?
There's of course, great excitement about hosting a World Cup, about seeing the World Cup. I wish there was more talk about the partnership between US, Mexico, and Canada in this. I think the excitement comes with reservations for real soccer fans in a way that it doesn't for others. Soccer fans who are casual are going to be able to embrace this wholeheartedly. A lot of soccer fans who are long-term soccer fans are a bit concerned about the pricing structure, about how this is being set up. They're putting in hydration breaks in every game, no matter what the temperature is. There's a fear that this is going to lead sooner or later to commercials during breaks. So there's some skepticism with soccer fans. There's skepticism about FIFA. There's skepticism about the political alignments. Lots of that going on. On the other hand, there's the excitement that we're hosting this, and every soccer fan I know of, regardless of whether they're European fans, MLS fans, Liga MX fans, it's a moment to shine light on what ultimately is just really is a dynamic, wonderful game to watch, the more you understand it. Getting people to put their eyes on the game in a new way, there's tremendous excitement about that, and there's tremendous hope that finally we're going to be in that moment where that translation from the big event to the real world afterwards really does translate. I think all the keys are in place. Soccer's visible, soccer's available. There's a national league, and there's access to games all over the world. There's a cautious optimism, I want to put it that way. We'll see, right?
Yeah.
I'm super excited about it. I can't wait.
Oh, I hope you do get to a game if you can and enjoy watching as much soccer as you can over the next couple of weeks. Thanks, John. It's been great speaking with you.
All right. Thank you so much.
That's it for this week's episode of The Conversation Weekly. You can go to theconversation.com to read more analysis about the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and we'll put a link in our show notes to some of that coverage. This episode was written and produced by me, Gemma Ware, Katie Flood, and Mend Marawani. Sound mixing is by Michelle Macklem, and our theme music is by Nita Saal. The Conversation is a non-profit news outlet dedicated to sharing the work of academic experts with a wide audience. If you like what we do, please consider supporting us at donate.theconversation.com. Thanks for listening.
What are you going to have? Can I have 2 pieces of mullet, please? a piece of sea perch and 8 whiting fillets, please, Pauline.
From a fish and chip shop in regional Queensland
I believe we are in danger of being swamped by Asians.
to the heart of Australian politics, this is the unlikely story of the country's most controversial minor party.
Are you xenophobic? Please explain.
For 30 years, One Nation and Pauline Hanson have been ridiculed, dismissed and shut out.
Gone. I don't like it. No, I don't. Never did.
Now, no one's laughing.
One Nation continuing to surge in the polls.
Dramatic surge in support for One Nation.
The fringe becomes the mainstream.
This is the story of how a party built on fear and grievance thrived, died, and rose again to upend Australian politics.
Well, I'm back.
Hanson 2.0 is the serious, strategic, experienced, battle-hardened political operator that we see in the news today.
I'm Ashlyn McGee. This is The Making of One Nation from The Conversation, and you can search for it wherever you listen to podcasts.